Hi, I'm Ruth Ann Norden,
And I'm Janet Syas Nitsick.
and we got a question from Judy, and she wanted to know how we do our collaborative works together.
Right.
So, do you want to start or shall I?
You should start.
And that is basically how we start a book.
Exactly.
I come up with an idea and I say, hey, let's do a book together. And at first, my idea was like we would do like one story together. But then you were like, no, I think we should do an anthology. And then I thought, yeah, that's probably easier because then she can work on her story and then I could work on mine.
And I think if I remember right, it was back basically a couple years ago when we did Bride by Arrangement and the kids were home. So it made it easier because she had kids at home and during the summer if we both did our own. And I did go over to her house a couple times and things like that, but it just made it easier to work on, because she's, got the kids and got to do activities with them during the summer.
Oh, yeah. Summer is a really hard time to get anything done because the kids are home. So we basically, I think, we already knew we were going to do historical Western because that's what we both do together. We both do that. And I think I picked the year, but I think you picked, like, the location.
Right. And we did look at we wanted to make sure it was after the Nebraska became a state too. So we looked that up to make sure that was the case too, because and so then we had to think also about what was going on during that time, and we knew there was trains, and so that we also came into play with that for the Bride by Arrangement, which also we did for Groom's Promise. And so and I came up with the location because I had done several other books and they're in Omaha, and I said we got to have something different. And so we chose Lincoln because Lincoln, if you're not from Nebraska, is about an hour away from Omaha. But Omaha is on the Missouri River, and it has some hills and some vegetation, of course, by the river bank. And but when you get further towards Lincoln, you are talking about really, really flat land. And I had been to Virginia years ago, and I thought, well, Virginia's got lots of trees and that kind of thing. And then I found out one of their biggest trees is dogwood trees. And then I also had been to the ocean there. And so I thought, well, let's do something from them coming from the east, from Virginia. And then you can also play a little bit with the southern accent too. And then having them come way to the Midwest. And of course, at that time, they really needed women out west.
Now I want some of you guys to kind of see something there, because that's how she writes. Description, history, and all this stuff. And I'm thinking, none of that interests me. I just want to get right to the plot. Because where I would start was, we just had an idea and we started writing it.
and that's what one reader said to me. She said that we're just so matched because we are like that. And
we are very different.
And because it gave our anthology both ends, and it really made it really great because it did do that.
Because I'm more action and dialogue. And you're more kind of like...
Yeah, so if you're reading the action dialogue and then you're filling in with some description here, it just kind of gives it a holistic thing.
What she's saying is that people read my story and think, I wonder what that place looked like. And they'll read hers and think, oh, now it all makes sense. So that's what she's saying.
Yeah, but they love it. They loved it.
At least it worked.
They really loved it. So they thought it was a really, really good book. So I mean, this one person that said this thought we planned it that way. I says, that's the way we are.
Yeah, it is. It's how we are. She accessorizes. I don't. This is as dressed up as I get.
And when I was recuperating from surgery recently, I had to dress down. It was really difficult.
She had to be like me. Can you imagine? She suffered. But because Bride by Arrangement, it really was. We really had two distinct novellas. Mm-hmm. So the only time we really had to get together was when we had the scenes where Opal and Ada were together. Mm-hmm. And if you notice, okay, like Opal's character was really just, really dressed up, really worried about stuff like that. Ada really didn't. That is pretty much us. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So if you kind of want an idea of how we are as individuals,
That's right.
Where we are really those characters.
That's right.
Because Ada's like, yeah, with all this stuff, and just tell him what's on your mind. Ask him, And Jane's like, no way would she ever do that.
That is so true. And they say that authors, anytime you're reading a book, there's a piece of that author in there.
Well, in that one, it really showed up. So if you want to see the differences between us, she really is Opal. I'm really Ada.
Exactly.
But then you have like A Groom's Promise, and then we took like mainly the roles of the heroes because they were brothers.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So I don't really see. Although I would say Mabel was kind of more like me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then Winifred would be like you too.
I think so too.
I don't think authors always put everything into themselves, but probably like the style of writing that you see, the things that the authors put into their work, probably is kind of.
Right. There are some books that's got more of the author in it than other books, but
right.
I'm just saying that there's a
but
grain
in Bride by Arrangement, if you really want to understand us.
Yeah.
It's
true.
We are the heroine in our particular story. You can really see it.
Now, Groom's Promise was more difficult because they were brothers, and it was more, you had to connect a lot of scenes together because you couldn't have one going here and coming back 4 days later, and in the other book, he came back the next day.
Right.
So you had to connect that, and you had to have them eat the same thing. You couldn't have a roast on one of them.
They had a lot of meals together, and there were like similar conversations that they had to have, and we tried to get rid of as much, I think, repetition as we could get away with. But something to keep in mind is that these really are two novellas, and someday Jana's going to want to take hers and publish it separate, and someday I'm going to want to take mine and publish it separately. Mm-hmm. They each have to stand on their own, so that's why there was quite a bit of repetition.
Mm-hmm,
in that thing, and that's why it seemed like, wow, it's pretty much
right. But that's because they were brothers too.
Well,
and they were living in
so much of what happened to one brother
affected
what happened to the other,
and they were living in the same place.
Yeah,
and that was the other thing. Like with Ada, she went off to in the Bride by Arrangement. She went off to a different setting. Right. Mine went off to a different setting. So you had. They were more standalone kind of thing, where the Groom's Promise was more intricate.
Right.
You had to have a lot of scenes that you had to work together on, and it's a good thing we get along because we might have been hitting each other,
What do you mean we might have? There's a couple times like, Hugh's going to do this. I'm like, bam. No, he's not. He's going to be doing this. Jack got really upset with Hugh for taking so long.
Right. That's right.
So I'm like, can't we get to the point yet? No, because I like to embellish.
Exactly. But that is the most important thing is when you're doing collaborative effort, make sure it's somebody you can work with because, because that is the most important thing because if the other person has other ideas and they're not willing to bend or anything like that, you're going to have lots of problems and you could end up destroying a friendship if it is a friend, if it's a friendship kind of relationship.
Yeah.
So, you just think of that beforehand because the personalities, and Ruth and I get along so well.
Right. Even though we are very different.
Yeah, but that's probably why
I think those complement each other.
Yeah, we do. We complement each other and like.
But we can be honest with each other too. I don't think this is working, and she'll say, it's not working. I'm like, oh. Still gotta go change things, or you're like, I just spent like a week on this, Ruth, and you're asking me. I remember that I think you're almost in tears that one time.
I know.
You're like, I'm sorry, it just doesn't work with my book.
And then you think, oh, okay, all right, I'll change it.
After a lot of, this person doesn't know what they're talking about. Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
But in the end, hey, we were able to laugh and.
Yeah, we were, and I think the book turned out really great. I mean, both of them have really done well, and I think it shows because we are together. I mean, we're connected, and our personalities are connected, and it shows in our work.
Right.
Our overall work, and so that's what I would say. The main thing is to do that, and know where you're going when you start out. I mean, for
collaborative work though, you kind of have to have an idea.
Right.
At least where you're ending up, especially if there are two brothers, and they're each going to go in separate ways. But you're the one character is being impacted by what's happening to another. They kind of have to have an idea of how you get to the end.
Right. Now you can work out those details as you get there, but you've got to have, like you said, an overall where you're going to end up at.
I think so.
And you've got to agree on that, and that needs to be set out right from the very beginning.
Yep.
The Bride Arrangement too. We kind of knew where we were going to end up at.
Yeah.
So you And I think the other thing is too, when you're doing collaborative work, not to doing a series with a character that stands alone. So if somebody doesn't read the other book, you have a book that will stand on its own. You
Right.
know, I mean, the character